Hello and welcome to yet another video lesson. Today we shall be discussing a very interesting science fiction by Jayant Narlikar. The story is based on two different theories, the catastrophe theory and the lack of determinism in quantum theory. In the story, the historian Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde was hit by a truck and then experienced a different alternative world without traveling to the future or the past. Now, how do you think that happened? Or what was different in the India of the parallel world? We shall soon find out, but let us first familiarize ourselves with the author Jayant Narlikar. Born in 1938 in Kolhapur, India, Jayant Vishnu Narlikar is an Indian astrophysicist. Along with Sir Fred Hoyle, he developed the conformal gravity theory known as Hoyle-Narlikar theory. He has received several national and international honors and awards including the Padma Bhushan, the Padma Vibhushan and the Bhatnagar Award. His works include several fiction and non-fiction written in English, Hindi and Marathi. Some of his important works are The Lighter Side of Gravity, The Structure of the Universe, The Adventure and The Comet. Let us now begin with the interesting story. The story begins with Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde, the historian and leading public figure of Pune. Already in a parallel world where he is on board the Jijamata Express from Pune to Bombay. There were no industrial townships outside Pune and the train stopped first at Lonavala, followed by Karjat. However, it did not stop at Kalyan. Gaitonde realized that he is in a parallel space, which looks and feels the same as the real. But there were missing links which he needed to investigate. The readers are kept in the dark about what has really transpired to create a sense of thrill and suspense. Professor Gaitonde, being an historian, wanted to connect the missing dots and come to a conclusion about how he had reached the other world by reading history books in the library. He also hoped to have a conversation with Rajendra Deshpande, assuming he existed in the alternate parallel world he had reached. Beyond a long tunnel, the train stopped at a small station called Sarhad. An Anglo-Indian in uniform went through the train, checking for permits. Professor Gaitonde's fellow passenger, Khan Sahib, informed him that they were about to enter the territory of the British or the British Raj. He also questioned whether it was the first time that Professor Gaitonde was visiting the place. The professor said yes, as he was technically visiting this particular Bombay of the parallel world for the first time. Note that this is the first time that we can actually understand that there is something wrong with the timeline of the story. The British Raj is a term used to refer to the colonial period when the British ruled India as one of its many colonies. By now, we are close to believing that Gaitonde has somehow managed to travel back in time. Gaitonde asked Khan Sahib how he was to reach Peshawar, to which Khan Sahib replied that from the Victoria terminus, he was going to take the frontier mail that night. His was a long journey of 2 days from Bombay to Delhi, then Lahore, and then Peshawar. Khan Sahib spoke a lot about his life, including his business. Professor Gaitonde listened willingly, as the conversation helped him gather information about life in India in the parallel world. Students, note how the reference to historical facts can give you hints about a date or a timeline to us. When Khan Sahib speaks of the frontier mail and describes his route, it is confirmed that the era in which Gaitonde has arrived is indeed very different than the one he used to live in. Yet, there are more surprises to come. Their train passed the Greater Bombay Metropolitan Railway and Khan Sahib pointed out the tiny Union Jacks painted on the blue carriages. They symbolized the British rule in the British territory. Soon, the train slowed down beyond Dadar and stopped at the Victoria terminus. The station was very clean, and the staff consisted of Anglo-Indians and Parsis along with a few British officers. As he walked out of the station, the professor found himself facing the building of the East India House headquarters of the East India Company. Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde was shocked to see the building in existence. In the world he originally belonged to, the East India Company was not in existence after the mutiny of 1857. He figured that history had taken a different turn in this parallel world which he had accidentally stumbled upon. As he walked along the Hornbill road, he noticed signs of the British Raj in the shops. There were Boots and Woolworth, departmental stores, office of the Lloyds, Barclays and other British banks. It was a replica of an English town. He entered the Forbes building and asked for his son Vinay Gaitonde. But he did not exist in that parallel world. The receptionist failed to track down any Vinay Gaitonde in the Directory of Employees. After a quick lunch, he went to the library of the Asiatic Society in the town hall. In the reading room, he asked for the whole list of history books authored by him. This is surprising for us, as we understand that in the parallel world, books authored by Gaitonde do exist. This means the timeline cannot be of a time of the past. He sat with all 5 volumes of his books. The first book covered the history up to Ashoka, the second volume took it up to Samudragupta, the third volume up to Muhammad Ghori, and the fourth up to the death of Aurangzeb. In the 5th volume of his book, the professor finally tracked down the exact point where history had changed its course. Fought on 14th January 1761 between the Marathas and Afghans led by Ahmed Shah Abdali and his allies, the Battle of Panipat was one of the biggest and most significant battles of the 18th century. However, the Marathas were defeated in the battle after the death of the leaders Vishwasrao and Bhau Sahib, and it led to the rise of the British rule in India. This gives a new twist to the story, as it had initially seemed as though Gaitonde had travelled back in time. Now, however, it seemed that he had entered a parallel realm altogether where history had unfolded differently. In the parallel world, the 5th volume of the history book authored by him had a different version of the Battle of Panipat. It said that the Marathas had won the battle and Abdali was chased back to Kabul by the victorious Maratha army led by Sadashiv Rao Bhau and his nephew Vishwas Rao. The outcome of the Maratha win was that they established their supremacy in the northern India. Moreover, the East India Company's expansion was curbed and reduced to small pockets in Calcutta, Madras and Bombay, just like the other colonies of the Portuguese and the French. Vishwas Rao had succeeded his father in 1780 AD and along with his brother Madhav Rao was successful in accomplishing the task. The Mughal regime was kept alive by the Peshwas because of political reasons. In the 19th century, the Peshwas realized the importance of the technological age that was dawning in Europe. They set up their own centers of technology and science. The East India Company extended their influence by offering their aids and influence in these setups. The 20th century brought further changes in the country. Inspired by the West, India was becoming a democracy and the Peshwas was being replaced by elected bodies. However, the Delhi Sultanate survived because it had no actual powers. It just had to make official the acts and laws passed by the parliament. The more he read about the history of that India of the parallel world, Gangadhar Pant felt proud and began to appreciate India more. In a parallel world, India was a country which had not been subjected to colonization and slavery of the white man or the British. It was an independent country that had survived on its own with dignity and self-respect. Bombay was leased out to the British as the sole outpost on the subcontinent till the year 2001. It was decided by the Treaty of 1908 and was for purely commercial purpose. From a position of strength, the professor was forced to compare the country he knew originally to the country he was witnessing around him in the parallel world. Overcome by questions about how the Marathas managed to win the Third Battle of Panipat, he looked for accounts of the battle itself. He went through several books and journals kept before him. He finally found Bhausahebanchi Bhakar. Bhakars are historical narratives of Marathi literature and is one of the oldest genres of medieval Marathi literature. The professor did not rely much on these historical accounts or Bhakars. However, he found them entertaining, and sometimes they contain some semblance of truth. In such Bhakar, he found an account of how Vishwashrao had come very close to death but had survived. The librarian politely asked the professor to leave at 8 p.m. The professor shoved a few notes in his pocket on his way out. In haste, he also pocketed the Bhakar. What happens next? Does the professor return back to the India that we all live in? We shall find out in the next part of this video lesson. See you soon.